moderate events of the conference. Really, it's great pleasure for me to be the first time in this conference and the first time in Florence, not in Italy in general, but in Florence. And so far I like it. Okay, and I hope that that is not the last time. And here you can see we have the research that is in a way similar to the previous ones, but in a way that is different because I'm a philologist, so everything was about words, but not technology is more important for me. But I will, try to look from that educational and technological perspective. And you can see that that is a joint research that covered not one country, but actually some different countries, and I will tell you why. But I want to explain, the idea behind that research. How did it start? Okay, and I wanted to take a look at that slide. And actually, that is not my journey right here to that conference, but at the beginning, I think in our morning session, we had that nice presentation about exchange programs and Erasmus, and actually we as educators are given that unique opportunity to visit different educational establishments and then to learn different teaching, learning opportunities. And culturally, I think that about more than 80% of all my trips were done namely under different exchange programs. And about a couple of years ago, maybe even more, because that was before pandemic, I think, I was given an opportunity to go to Greenland. And you can see this is the route. So Lithuania, a small country somewhere marked with the number 1, okay? And that is Greenland. And I think that I thought at that time that is, once in a lifetime opportunity, because I've never choose Greenland for my holiday destination, but not because I don't like the country. I would really like to go there, but for me, from a small country somewhere in Europe, okay, so that was too remote, and it's pricey. Actually, it's quite expensive to go there. But of course, I'm a good planner. The thing what I do, I usually, as soon as I know that there is some chance and possibility, I start checking, the route and the flights. That was not the map, but I got just, the starting point, and then you get your destination. And I saw the pricing was quite, tempting. That was okay. But if you look somewhere at the top, you can see number 3, and there was some abbreviation shortening, SFJ. There was no map. I just got idea, and I saw that, okay, so this is some kind of layover, stopover somewhere. Okay, so, and you always can go into, details to get that itinerary. That was in my native language, in Lithuanian. And, when I got into that, I was surprised, that shortening, that abbreviation was translated as St. John Island, somewhere, in the United States Virgin Islands. And, the thing is that, I do I wrote a message, I think, and I said, is it really true? So is it the route via the United States? What a complicated way. And in a couple of hours, I got some apologies and say, no, sorry, this is, the mistake. And actually, this is what it was. It was, some stopover in Greenland. So everything is fine. So, and at that moment, I thought, okay, so I'm a tourist. I'm not aware of that language and all, those shortenings, abbreviations, and all signs and messages that they have, and it could be really frustrating. And that is how the research starting, and that was the aim of the research. First of all, to look into those mistakes, especially in the context of tourism, and mistakes translation into the English language, because you always see the native language, you understand nothing, okay, and then you look at the English one, and then you start comparing and just sometimes wondering if everything's fine here or not. But I'm from the educational institution, and I teach students who are future translators. I just have consecutive interpreting, but we have really strong teachers who teach translators. And also what we do, we integrate technology as it was here. So we can't come back, to the pen and paper times. Okay, so what we do, we use that. And the second part of the research was Are there any ways, methods, techniques, and especially nowadays with that progress in technology, okay, just to avoid them or at least to reduce, to diminish them? So that was the second part of our research. Now, just to speak, methodology, first of all, theoretical analysis is any research that should have some solid framework, theoretical framework. So I would briefly go there to mention some names, but more from the philological perspective. And the practical empirical part, that was, first of all, it's more about mistake. It was more about mistake, that descriptive analysis, and of course, that comparative analysis involving technology into that. Now, if just briefly to have that overview from the theoretical point of view, of course, we wanted to know what about language of tourism. And coming back to our team, as I said, so I have a colleague from the same institution, Lithuania, then we have two colleagues from Estonia, and they work in the field of tourism, so that's why they were beneficial for us. And we had one more person, so that person was the professional, I would say, in the field of international communication. So actually, we formed a team: language, translation, tourism, and international communication. So first of all, just to make a long story short, okay, so actually the language of tourism is quite the subject for different types of studies, and anthropologists and sociologists and linguists, okay, so they look from different perspectives. There are really different studies related to that, but actually just one general conclusion could be drawn out, that it's really, a kind of special discourse. So it means that, okay, so it shares, as any kind of text, any piece of information, okay, so it's similar, it shares some similarities, but, there are some characteristics, and we were more interested in those linguistic characteristics that make it distinctive. And first of all, we can speak about lexical levels. So if we take any kind of promotional material, whether that is brochure, whether that is a kind of, an advertising material. There are so qualifying adjectives like spectacular or exciting, or superlative adjectives. So let's see some keywords that are used here. Or let's say there is a specific term like languaging. So we make up the word. Let's say I was on a business trip a couple of weeks ago, and I went to some, they say that's a good place to have dinner, and that's called fish shop. Okay, I thought fish shop. But when it came, it's a blend word, one word, fish shop. Yeah, so it means some of the letters were taken out, and some words are created to attract that attention. So they make them, and of course, cultural references. So those local words, when you see the local word, it brings you the sense of authentic, maybe genuine environment that you can get there. Now, on the syntactical level, what we can see, so this is nominalization. So in those tourism, again, promotional material, they tend to use more nouns than verbs. For example, not when you arrive, but upon your arrival. Okay, so it's more common cases like that. Of course, imperatives, because they want to turn, that prospective tourist into the real one. Okay, so immerse yourself, so that atmosphere, recharge your batteries, and all the other ones. And what was interesting to learn, that actually present simple tense plays an important role, because present simple is something permanent. If you give some future tense or some present continuous, something temporary. Okay, and this is something permanent. Your holiday may be everlasting, what we have. And functional level, so just any text has two main functions. So referential, that information, informative, okay, so they tend to inform, provide information, and persuasive one, again, tourism, that is the part that I have to be somehow persuaded that I need to go to Greenland, for example. Okay, now, so the other part was about translation. Again, I will try to make it as short as possible, to just to explain the research that we conducted. And of course, when we speak about translation, there are different theories and those classical traditional ones and some modern approaches. But first of all, if you want to be a good translator, you have to have that translation competence. Okay, so this is the ability to translate, and there are lots of aspects that you have to keep in mind. And of course, mistakes are inevitable. We learn from mistakes. I have students, and we always analyze mistakes. So let's say we have the translation, we look at that and say, okay, so why you think the translator has made this or that mistake? Okay, so they're here. And we can speak that there are, different types, starting with grammar and spelling, lexis, also looking into the larger context, like, discourse, what we have. And also sometimes there are omissions, just the part is omitted, okay, or let's say added. unnecessary information is added, okay, or we have some repeated linguistic items right there. Okay, so that was actually the background, and you can see in the paper different studies, different approaches, okay, in terms of language of tourism and translation mistakes. But I said to sorry, one more thing. Okay, so about challenges, okay, for translators, so we can speak. So what makes maybe the most difficult part for them? So first of all, those cultural things, cultural issues, especially types of food. When you want to translate, okay, so it's sometimes really difficult. False friends. I think you are aware of that. And in different languages, okay, so we have those tricky words that we tend to use, okay, in our meaning, okay, we have our English, and actually it appears to be something different than stylistic difference at the register. Let's say some languages, I would say, are more poetic than the others. The others are more straightforward, what we have. Okay, now, and to bring, that cutting edge, that modern aspect to our research, we try to focus on machine translation and artificial intelligence. And by the way, that picture also was generated by me. I'm not an IT person, but this is, I found on Canva one function. So just you type in keywords, I said computer translation, machine translation, and voila, I have the picture on my own, okay? Okay, so what is that? Actually, machine translation is not a new thing. If you look, so that dates back 1950s, okay? So they already started developing that and using that, but I think the breakthrough came with 2010, where that was neuro machine translation already, the ability not just to perform translation based on some kind of statistics, but also to adapt and to change. And of course, with the advancement in artificial intelligence, I think now we speak more about not more about translation, but we speak about post editing. This is the thing that most of the translators do, and they use different tools. Okay, now what about the research itself? So I would say that there were two stages. First of all, stage one, it's more about those mistakes. Okay, so that scope that we needed here. So we wanted to identify whether maybe there are no mistakes, maybe that my Greenland case is the only one, and that's it. Okay, and what about the sources that we had here? So actually, these were different tourist sites, but we set one criteria. It should be something, we call it credible. I don't know the exact word in English, but it's not like, somebody wrote on the window of some small shop that I'm out and made some spelling mistake. No, these are the places where you come and there are lots of tourists, and actually that is printed. So this is some, official sign or message that you see, and you see an obvious mistake here. So we just limited ourselves here. And the very research took place not that long. It was about 4 months. I think we started, generating idea with a colleague somewhere in autumn, and we said, okay, let's do it. Christmas is a busy time, but still we had some business trips. I also took my students to one internship, 11 students, and one of the tasks is one day to go to museums, to different tourist sites and find mistakes. They were quite happy to find some of them. Okay, so we just limited to 48, but some of them were repeated, and that's why. But it was not about the quantity. We just wanted to see the pattern. That was the first idea what we had. Okay, now, and briefly, I want to go through all those types of mistakes. So first of all, of course, the biggest number of mistakes that we found, so these were spelling mistakes, and you can see here, and English spelling system is complicated. Let's admit that, okay? And especially, pronunciation and spelling, these are two things that do not always come together, and some people are quite frustrated with that. The problem is with the word English, I would say, okay, because there are so many different versions you can find. By the way, speaking about sources, at first we wanted to put the country, but there are a lot of Lithuanian examples, so that, okay, for me, maybe it's okay, but the other ones, so we just limited the source as a very general one. Let's say the center ground ticket machine or restaurant or company presentation, because where tourists are invited to take a tour. Okay, we did not specify to the country, though the person in our group who was from intercultural community said that would be nice, to compare low context, high context cultures, but it's another part of the reason. Okay, so you can see first examples, usually this is misspelling. Again, we can make some assumption. Maybe that is, oversight, maybe not being attentive to details, okay? Or maybe this is, some resemblance, similarity to your language, your own language, and that's why you have that mistake. Or let's say you want to take a look at the last example where we have in some countries, let's say in my language, we don't capitalize month, we don't capitalize days of the week. Okay, so maybe just you think that, and I see the tendency, my students are quite fluent in English while speaking, but not writing. I don't know, even they write in small letter, and I don't know why they do that. Okay, now the second part, so grammatical mistakes. So we can see here also just a part of those examples. So, in one holiday resort, that wanting bubble, that sounds strange. Maybe it's a craving for bubbles. It was something about jacuzzi treatment that they offer. Or let's say the second one. The second one, lacks that apostrophe, or even, there should be another way of using that. But, apostrophe is also, quite a complicated case. In English, you never know. There are a lot of rules and even more exceptions, I think. Okay, so that is what we have. Okay, using the word both and that. And the last one, two examples, they are related to syntax. Okay, so the word order, so they really sounds strange, but yeah, we can see them. And the last group, okay, so these are lexical mistakes. So you can see it is based on homonymy, homophones, okay, first three examples, but those other examples, okay, so they are those, I think, cases of false friends, okay, and we will analyze because effects, and even if I'm not wrong, okay, so that is in the Rome airport, okay, so effects, I think that just another word like belongings or valuables should be used there. And a very interesting case, with the Spanish, do we have Spanish people? No, because they use the word special, and actually it's correct. It's not that this is the wrong one, but just, the word special is used more commonly. But somehow Spanish, they like that word more often. Okay, now what about the second stage? So, okay, we collected mistake. We saw that there are some mistakes. I wouldn't say that that's a great deal. I think that the situation has improved a lot. Okay, I just can't judge based on the experience from my country. I think that we are getting better and better and correct English, especially, those official places. But the second stage was, okay, but now let's look, who are better at, first of all, recognizing and then maybe correcting or interpreting those mistakes, people or not. So what we have, we took students, I took my students, so the colleagues from other universities, so we took 56 students from different study programs, so language, tourism, entrepreneurship, and something else. Okay, their level was quite high, B2, C1. So they first of all had to look at those examples. They were just given those examples and they were asked to find the mistakes. But in order to make it more interesting, we said, but there are some correct sentences. What was fun, they corrected the correct ones. Okay, so they were asked to do that manually. They were given, enough time to do that. And, speaking about that, because I don't have the data here, they were quite good. When they knew that they had to find a mistake, they really focused, and actually, I would say 90% of all mistakes, they were identified, and some correct answers were written, just maybe in some cases with those false friends, again, based on their language, okay, so they were not recognized. But now, as we are here for that modern technology, let's analyze what we have. So actually what we use here, of course, we use ChatGPT, but free version, so 3.5, yeah, so ChatGPT. We use Grammarly editor, but again, the free version, and if you subscribe, we have a subscribed version, so it provides you that generative AI field where you can also test those things. Okay, and here when we have the result, again, when we speak about spelling, yeah, in most cases, technology could identify, you can say identified, and what I liked, it provided, the explanation, and below you can see here we have the missing plural ending, and you can see that this phrase appears to be grammatically incomplete. It contains, so the correct phrase should be. So I think that it's very good for educational purpose, because sometimes you can identify something is wrong, but you don't know why. So I like the explanation that provided here. When we speak about grammatical mistakes, okay, so you can see that Grammarly editor said, okay, it's too short. Okay, so AI generative suggested the answer, but ChatGPT did not recognize that. Or wanting bubbles, you can see the sentence was recognized only was recognized only by also Grammarly generative AI function. And again, I like that gave a very nice explanation. Both is used only with 2 elements, not 3, so you should change, and some correct answer was provided. And when it came to the lexical one, okay, so yeah, so in one case also, but ChatGPT was better here, so that provided the the correct answer, like values should be changed into valuables, but let's say one was not identified. I don't remember which one. Okay, but actually what we have. So judging that was some fun experiment to try to see. Okay, so what is that? So if to come to conclusions, we can say that really tourism is still expanding. I don't know what's going to happen next, but still it's just blowing up and getting bigger and bigger. And of course accuracy in translation of tourism text is really, really important, and we have to pay attention. Now, when we come to common mistakes, so usually they are misspelling, grammatical mistakes, and lexical mistakes. They are more related, to, I think, the language that the translator possesses, and that the first language that we have. And what about, artificial intelligence? Really, this is when it comes to large amount of information. Okay, so really it could take the arduous work from the translator and help that in this way. But the conclusion, I would say, is that nowadays a human and technology should go hand in hand and help each other. So let's say when I have to do some translation, I do using DeepL or the other software for that. So then I just turn on my critical thinking, analytical thinking. Okay, so just to look at that again. But then if I need, and I know that okay, I did it late night, again I ask Grammarly to review that. So you really want to have quality of that translation. So that should be a combination of human and the technology and harmony. That's it.
Thank you. Take questions, comments.